Welcome everyone to Basics to Wellness. I'm Paul Stumpo and this is my lab/research center here in my house. And here I meet people who are on a journey into well-being, into wellness, in which I attempt to help empower them or actually provide a pathway for them to empower themselves. Folks that come here have taken on the concept that they are becoming their own doctor and responsible for their own being and for their own development, for their own karma, if you will, and steadily working at it. And to the degree I have healed myself and have received healing, um, or have overcome or have mastered a particular subject of well-being, I'm able to deliver that research, that assistance to anyone that has come along. And so I appreciate you stopping in. This is my first video of a series of videos, and it's my introductory video, you might have noticed. And part of my introduction is a recognition of basically how I have started off in this modality. My classical training in this particular lifetime is in electrical engineering and embedded systems development, and up until around 2001 that was totally my primary focus. Part of my own development was back in 1996, recognizing that there was a different pathway for modality, having run into a good friend of mine by the name of Keith, who had his own terminally ill disease that he was completely treating nutritionally. And inspired by him and his research, I began my own journey into understanding what naturopathic, homeopathic modalities are, as well as bioenergetics and bioelectronics for myself, for my own well-being. Someone who had, typical year would consist of 4 or 5 sinus infections, and for a week long with green stuff pouring out my nose and a really horrible feeling in life. And going from that to, after my first encounter with a naturopath, doing nutritional and homeopathic and doing this thing called Noget pulse testing, which I'm not going to describe, but you can look up. It is a form of muscle testing or energetic testing to qualify a supplement. With his help, Dr. Kasman here, and mentioning him by name, he's now retired and moved on. I have not, since that time, back in 1996, in his testing and his supplements and his homeopathics, I have not had a sinus infection since, in this long many years. And so from that time on, my journey into owning my well-being really became intensified and began to get clearer and focused and more expanded, up until a point where, as an engineer doing different projects, freelance with my own company, and having the ability to step in and out of particular contract phases, having my own time to do my own research, was inspired by a dear friend of mine whose daughter became quite ill and ended up in the 7th floor hospital, children's hospital in St. Louis, and in pediatric ICU. Her name was Jessica Lynn. Let's see if we get a good shot on her. Den Hartog McKinney, who I just realized and recognized passed away 14 years today, exactly, on June 3rd in 2004. Before that point, I had the opportunity to work with little Jessica, recognizing that with all the huge medical scientific community at their disposal at the time, had no practical solutions. In fact, the doctor told the mom that she would not leave the hospital. Well, in an extraordinary set of circumstances, I end up driving to St. Louis to be with them and help introduce them to what little I knew, and it was very little compared to today, of bioenergetics and homeopathics and nutritional. Of course, she at this point was in ICU and was completely incapacitated. The glioma on the brainstem basically grows and grows and grows until it shuts down all the motor skills. The person is completely conscious and aware, and she could wiggle her big toe to answer to questions, and that was it. That was the only motor skill that was left for her, amazingly enough. And somehow, by divine intervention, some of the devices that I introduced to her grandparents and her parents at the time were allowed to be used in her ICU room. I've told this to many people, very few believe me, it's true, and I doubt it's ever happened since. I don't know, but somehow the divine realm opened up a channel for that to happen, and we used a Rife machine and a foot bath called the Nakuchi foot bath, and things of this nature on her. I think a magnetic pulsar on her. I still have some of those devices today, and still using some. And thus began her journey to actually leave the hospital. Unfortunately, they had done radiation therapy, and she was also began to work with Dr. Brzezinski, I believe his name, out of Texas, doing peptide treatments. And through that, actually completely neutralized the main tumor. But because of the radiation treatments, the other tumors grew, and she finally succumbed to those tumors in 2004 on June 3rd, 14 years from today. So this is how I got my start in this amazing world of what's called alternative therapies, and into naturopathic, homeopathic remedies. And my journey continued on from there. As an engineer, finding electrodermal screening, using that as a feedback mechanism to test the meridians or a meridian point in the body and understanding it's in a relationship to conductance. I spent many years researching that modality and or assessment technique, and have since moved on to what's called vibrational dowsing. These bits and pieces that I'm throwing out, we're going to get into in detail. I wanted to give you a little bit of background, who I am, and what I'm about, and what this channel is going to present more data on. So thank you for stopping in. If there are questions, further questions that I haven't answered, again, my background, just in brief, is electrical engineering and in embedded systems and automotive electronics, in which I still work in and out of that arena today, and labeled by a local chiropractor, dear friend, as a detoxicologist. And I will get into that more in detail in future videos. There'll be a whole outline of videos. Specific and special component of videos, which will be the first up, are the ones on how to mitigate and convert the detrimental energies that we're calling electromagnetic interference, EMI, or EMFs, or geopathic stress. These are so critical today that we have to focus very intently on them. And so the next video is going to be on what Basics to Wellness is about, and we'll talk more in detail on those specific items there. So see you in the next video. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for stopping in. Welcome to Basics to Wellness.